right. One of these days, I'm going to get this right. But I am here now. So thank you for joining us. Doesn't look like I missed too many people when I messed up my camera. Sarah, if you could let me know, you can't do thumbs up, but if you could just put in the chat, can you hear me? Hopefully you can see me. Everything's good. All right, we're going to wait for Sarah because I don't know if we're good or not. Oh, okay. So I'm probably, yes, it did. Okay. So maybe that's why nobody's here. Wait, there's one person here? Um, so if I can't see who's here, and I had some technical difficulties, so hopefully everybody can get on just by going to my channel. I don't know. Um, all right, Anna, you're there, so we're all right. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Um, one of these days I'll get this all together, but anyway, doesn't matter. Let's move on. It's okay. So, thank you so much for joining us live. I am so glad that you're here. And so I just want to I'm all about accountability. So we're going to start with December. So I realize it's January, but in December we were talking all about the power of prayer in leadership and in the workplace. So for those of you who know what I'm talking about, curious to know how's your prayer room? How in my case, it's a prayer wall. So it's actually a prayer door. I take the backside of my office door, and that's where I have all my sticky notes on the people, situations, and thoughts, and all the things that I'm praying for. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, then I encourage you to go back to the December Take Jesus to Work Day um, discussion and check it out, because I think it'll absolutely change your prayer life. So what I like to do is open in prayer, because that helps center me. And hopefully the whole idea is for you to take these next 45 minutes ish. We might be about 50 minutes, but 45 minutes ish. And set, like push the rest of the world, keep it outside of your four walls or wherever you're watching this. So here we go. So please pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today, for another opportunity to do your will and to complete your mission that you have for my life and those on this call or listening to the replay. I ask for your wisdom and for your guidance, that my words that I speak are not my own, but they're yours, and that we all leave our stresses at the door. For the next 50 minutes or so, we're able to focus on you, the topic we're discussing today, and I pray that we are not only blessed, but we are a blessing to everyone that we encounter. Our eyes are open, our hearts are open, our ears are open to hear the message that you want us to receive today. Amen. All right. Fantastic. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Melissa McCormick. So I'm the owner of Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. And true story, I wanted to be a lawyer. So wanted to argue cases in a courtroom, right? And so today what I do is I help leaders stop arguing with their calendar. That's what I do. I traded the courtroom for the boardroom, so that overwhelmed business owners and leaders can get out of the weeds. They can communicate clearly, strengthen their teams, and find a freedom in getting their time back. And so that's my goal for Take Jesus to Work Day as well. And that's where I want this to be a place where faith meets real leadership. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story as to why this is important for me personally, but just for the world, quite honestly. So many years ago, so I worked in corporate for 32 years. In 2019, I left and I started my entrepreneurial journey. Well, I was in about 2022, after I published my book, Grace and Salt, I was really struggling with finding my people, like finding my market and who I was supposed to serve and all of that. So I was talking to my pastor and I was mentioning this to him that I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. Like I was looking in corporate America, I was looking at small businesses. I wasn't looking for Christian based, faith based organization. I was just looking for my people, right? And every time I would tell somebody what I did, once they found out that it was faith based and I have this Esther project, then they knew it was, Esther is a nod to Queen Esther. They would immediately say, oh, okay, so you need to work with churches or faith based organizations. I'm like, no, I don't need to. I can, but no, that wasn't my intent. So, anyway, this happened on and on and on. And so I thought, well, maybe. Maybe I am supposed to. Like, maybe I am that is where I'm supposed to lean into. And so anyway, so I was talking to him and he's like, Melissa, he didn't, I don't think he said the word hate, but he said, I absolutely get so frustrated when people think that we should separate the faith world and business world. Like, don't you think businesses need Jesus more than anyone or anywhere? And so he went on this rant and I'm like, "Okay. Okay, so maybe I'm getting doors, right? But maybe that's not God. Maybe I'm supposed to go through these trials and tribulations to grow and to strengthen so that when it's time for me to really lean into whatever this looks like, that I'll be ready and I'll be prepared." So I'm telling you that because this Take Jesus to Work Day show or podcast or whatever you want to call it has been on my mind for a long time. In fact, I bought the domain, probably 2 or 3 years ago, and now I just finally decided to act upon it. So anyway, so before we get started, so today we're going to be talking about work and rest, okay? Work and rest. And it's not going to be, well, anyway, I'm not going to give you the punchline. So I got a question for you as we just get started here today. So my question is this: what word best describes how you rest? So if you feel comfortable putting it in the chat, put it in the chat. If you don't, just kind of write it down or think about it. What word best describes how you rest? I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. Okay, so just kind of sit with that for a little bit, right? As leaders, we're wired for responsibility. Like the weight of decisions, people, outcomes, expectations, all the things. And somewhere along the line, that responsibility became control. Now, maybe not with everybody, but definitely with me. I am a control freak and I'm trying to break that habit in 2026. But I was having a conversation with a couple of my friends. We meet every Monday on Zoom. One is in Oregon and one is in Oklahoma. And we met actually through a program online. And so every Monday we get together and we were talking about delegation and really why does delegation have a bad reputation and why is it that some people don't want to delegate? Right. So I believe that delegation is a gift and that if you are giving responsibility or a task or something to somebody else, you're giving them the gift of growth, and also giving it to yourself because you are freeing up your schedule so that you can grow and you can get additional responsibility or stretch your assignments or whatever, and you're not busy doing all the things. So anyway, so through this conversation, Pamela, she says, well, what is it about holding on to things? Like, why do people hold on to things? And so I said, well, in my experience, sometimes, especially women, we kind of like being in charge. We kind of like being the go-to person. So, you're in middle management or maybe you're executive, whatever it might be, but typically the middle managers, they're busy doing all the things. They're trustworthy, they're the go-to person. Everybody, they've been around for a while, so people, the newer folks come to them for advice or whatever it might be, and they like that. But in doing so, you're not freeing up your opportunity to grow yourself because you're doing all the things. Or sometimes I've had ladies in the past tell me, well, I really, if I give this to so and so, what if they did it? Would that reflect poorly on me? Right? Those are things, those are real thoughts, those are real things that are going through our minds. And so that, or so then we're not able to open up our own schedules and our own lives so that we can grow. And so it ends up being a detriment to our own mission and purpose and career goals, quite frankly. So anyway, so Pamela says, so she asked this question. She says, well, why are you so attached to it? Like whenever she has a client that isn't willing to give something up, she asks that question. Why are you so attached to it? So, I mean, if there's something in your world that you probably should be giving up or gifting to somebody in the right way, right? Delegation has a bad reputation because some people have delegated with the wrong intent and the wrong reason. Let's just face that. So if you're interested, we're not going to go into delegation today, but if you are interested, I do have go to my Top Floor Please podcast, which you can find on the same YouTube channel, and search for delegation. There's a couple episodes there that kind of dig into delegation so that you can delegate in the right way with the right intent. But anyway, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I started thinking about it. This year, I'm trying to surrender my business because I said it, I'm a control freak. But I'm trying to surrender my business to God. Like take it because I'm doing okay, but I don't know that I'm serving the people I'm supposed to be serving. Like who serving those people that he wants me to serve and not serve everyone. So take it. And I'm going to be your your employee, like be the CEO, be the chairman of the board, like be it. But I know me. That's January. I'm all in. I'm all in January. February, I'm going to be all in. March, well, if things are going well, I'm going to take it back. So, who's the singer that sang Jesus Take the Wheel? Carrie Underwood, right? So, I'm giving Jesus the wheel in January and February. But if things start going well, I get cocky. I don't know if you get this way, but I get cocky and I'm like, oh, I don't want that steering wheel back. Right? Nope, I got this. Thanks so much for January and February. I've got this. And so then I'm going to realize, oh, no, wait, Melissa, you got to give it back. So this is what's going to happen through the year. I just know it until it becomes a behavior and it really becomes part of my DNA. So when Pamela asked me that question, what are you so attached to? Like, why won't you give it up once and for all? What's the answer to that? Whoa, that really sat with me. And that's a whole nother, like, I don't even know that I publicly want to talk through that because that's a big answer. I kind of know the answer, but I'm not really sure. So I'm going to be sitting with that for a while. But anyway, it's super good stuff that we will talk about at another time. But today, I promise you, we're going to get to the topic. Today, I feel like this is a book report. Like, okay, so we had 2 weeks off, right? We had 2 weeks off, or most of us, Christmas time, right? We're holidays. And even if you were working, maybe it was a little bit less hectic because most of the world rested or was off, if you will. And so at Christmas time, anyway, so I feel like this is a book report. My son and daughter-in-law gave me a book. It's this book right here. I got to see where I'm at. Yeah, Buy a Cabin. And so I thought, oh, that's excellent because Mike and I are looking to buy a cabin in Wisconsin and we're going to retire up there. So I thought, oh, this is how to buy a cabin, like the things you should think about when buying a cabin. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Yeah. So what the author, so his name is Robert Franck, and it's a very interesting concept. He has quite a bit of theology in it and just some calculations on rest and work and things like that. But what he's basically telling us, so he starts out, I just want to share this with you because I think this concept is really kind of crazy. He says, he starts off by telling us that typically in the mission field or in like the faith-based industry, churches, that type of thing, if you personally have extra money, you should then give it to the homeless shelter, or you're donating it to church or to a school in the Dominican Republic, or, right? You're right. Those are the things because we feel guilty if we buy something for ourselves because it's extra money that we should be giving to those who need it, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing. He calls kind of, he doesn't say this, but it's kind of BS, right? He's like, no, that's not it. That is not it at all. If you want to buy a cabin and that cabin is going to be your refuge, that cabin is going to be the place of rest so that it can renew your spirit. And then that's exactly what you should do is buy the cabin. I'm like, wait, what? Right? He starts out the book with that. And then he outlines why rest is so incredibly important and how Jesus used rest in his teaching and in his ministry. So I'm going to just bring up um, my Bible app here. So I've got some verses that reinforce that, and then there's one in particular that we're going to dig into a little bit deeper. So, for example, we've got Luke chapter 5, 15 through 16, where it says, the Bible says, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Lonely places, like places of solitude, right? And he prayed. He often withdrew, which indicates that he withdrew more than once, right? Matthew 14:13. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. He prayed, he rested. Mark 6:30 through 32. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. Luke 6, verse 12. One of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. Matthew 11, this one most of us know, 28 through 29. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Now, that one has a lot of, people use that on a lot of different connotations, but the whole point is that rest is super important. So, the one that I really want to dig into, because I think you'll resonate with the situation that Jesus was in at the time, but it's Mark, the first chapter, verse 35. It says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. So I'll tell you the story of how this happened in a second, but I want to go to verse 29 because it's important to know the context. So it says, as soon as they left the synagogue, they went with James and John to the home of Simon and Andrew. Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they immediately told Jesus about her. So he went to her, took her hand, and helped her up. The fever left her, and she began to wait on them. That evening, after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door. So imagine this. I don't know what kind of city or town you live in, but even if it's 80 people, 80 people were at the door. Like Roscoe, Illinois, where I'm at, is, I don't know, we're 6 or 7,000 people. 6 or 7,000 people went to the door. It says the whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus helped many who had various diseases. He also drove out many demons, but he would not let the demons speak because they knew he was. Then it says, very early in the morning, while he was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. So just imagine the stress. Like I go to the whole town was at the door, and now they're like, because they found out, right? Simon's mother-in-law was sick. He helped her. The fever's gone. Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, I need you to fix this. I've got my brother-in-law, I've got my brother, I've got my sister, me, whatever it might be. And they're rushing to Simon's house and they want him to help. Like, can you please? Like, so everybody wants a piece of him, right? Imagine that, right? Heal this person, that person, this person. I have this problem, fix it, right? Can you imagine what that looked like? Yeah, exactly. So then it says, after he left the house where he prayed, it says, Simon and his companions went to look for him, for Jesus. And when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, I find this so interesting. Let us go somewhere else. Let us go somewhere else to the nearby villages so I can preach there also. That is why I have come. So I find it interesting because when Simon said, that sounds funny. Simon said, everyone is looking for you. Jesus said, let us go somewhere else. Let us go to a nearby village so I can preach there also, right? He didn't say, really? Who's looking for me? How can I help them? What do they want? He didn't even acknowledge that Simon spoke, right? He didn't even acknowledge that Simon said that. He was focused on that. He knew his mission. Let's go somewhere else because this place is hectic. Let's go where people aren't so needy. Where can I preach and not get inundated with healing requests? Now, of course, I don't know that he said all those things. I don't even know if he thought all that. He probably didn't. But that's where my mind goes. And so I'm two things. One is how this whole verse came to me today. I have to tell you, and I will get to that in a second. But second of all, I love the fact that he was helping and then he left to rest, recover, renew, comes back. Simon says, where in the world have you been? Like the entire town is here wanting your help. And his response is, you know what? Hey, let's go someplace else. Let's get out of this chaos. I love that. Should we take an example of that? Should we take that lesson and go, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay attention to your, we need to step off. Sometimes we need to step off of the world. And if the world needs us that much 24 hours a day, then you're probably not being paid enough money, right? So I just have this one question that I want you to just to think. When was the last time you intentionally created space? When was the last time that you intentionally creating space for yourself, to pray, to listen, not talk to God, but to listen? When was the last time? Well, this is the crazy story that I'm going to tell you today that was not planned. So I was meeting a friend this morning for tea at a local coffee shop. Good friend, always on time. I was a little late, so I was freaking out, right? So I'm driving probably a little faster than I should. I walk in, I'm looking through, where all the booths and the tables and I don't see her. So I was like, oh, okay. She's, it's just 8:00. She'll be here, no problem. So I wait. And I'm sitting there and the guy at the counter is like, do you want some coffee? I'm like, no, I'm just waiting for my friend. 5 minutes pass. 8 minutes pass. Finally, I'm like, I probably should text her. Like maybe something's wrong. So I text her. She doesn't respond. Now I have a hard stop at 9:00. Like I have to be back here by 9:30. So I have to leave her at 9. So at 8:20, 8:25, we're going to have, a really short conversation and it's probably not going to be as it should be. Right. So what do I do? Do I leave? Do I stay? I don't know to do. It's 8:15. Now the old me would have left and driven home, got to my office, started working, or I would have gone to one of the booths, got my tea, pulled out my paper and pen, starting write a to-do list, right? I cannot shut or quiet, I guess is what I want to do. I cannot quiet my mind. So that would have been the old me. The new me, the January 2026 me, didn't do that. The January 2026 me got her tea. She went to a booth and she sat there And she said, I know I'm talking about myself in the third person. I gotta tell you something. This was the craziest thing because I've never done this before. Like I meet my mom most Fridays for lunch. And if my mom's not there when I'm there, I'm writing on a bar napkin, right? What I have to do for the rest of the afternoon. Like I cannot quiet my mind. I'm always thinking of things and how to grow the business and right? So everything's going. And I'm sure you can probably relate to some of this. But anyway, so this morning I decide no, because after all, I am trying to rest. I am trying to bring rest into my world and find space to truly be silent and to listen. So I got my tea. I'm sitting there. I didn't reach for my pen and paper. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? Like I got to do something, right? Hmm, I'll read the Bible. That's what I'll do. I'll read the Bible. Let's spend time with God. That's a great idea. So I get my phone out. I get my Bible app out and my Bible app is set to Mark 1, verse 35, because that's what we're studying today. So I start to read, but my thoughts go to this lesson, right? My thoughts go to work. How can I use this verse in today's message? Like, I can't turn that off. If you know me, you know that I live life looking for leadership lessons, like everything. One time I was in Florida at a conference and we are on the beach having a very nice evening, like a cocktail evening. And I had a brownie. I had a brownie bite and I went like this to eat it. And a seagull came down and stole it out of my hand and flew off. Well, I had to write a blog about it because I had to research seagulls and how precise that he was. It didn't even touch my hand. I mean, it was the craziest thing ever. So I live my life looking for leadership lessons. That's what I do. And this morning was no different. So I start like, and it was good because it provided context. I had no intention of reading 29 through 34 and then again going on to 38. It made today's lesson a lot richer. So it was great that it happened, but that wasn't my intent. My intent was to quiet my mind. So I decided to pray, right? I tried to silence my thoughts and my voices in my head as the radio in the coffee shop is singing, Baby, It's Cold Outside, which it is cold outside, but I like the song. And so then I go to that song, right? I just can't. So it's now 8:30. I just tried, okay, it's time to go home. Enough of this. It was my very first step at quieting my mind. So if you have any tips on how to quiet your mind, I'm up for it. And I also recognize that changing behavior and all of that takes time. So today was my very first step in that. But it was kind of cool. Anyway, so my whole point of this is that rest typically happens when we either schedule our vacation or we're exhausted and we more. But Franck, he flips that idea. And so this is the meat of what we're going to be talking about today. And this is where just looking at my timing here. This is where we have a little bit of fun. So rest is not stopping work. Rest is repositioning it outside of work. So I just want to share just a little bit more going back to how Jesus modeled this for us, right? He withdrew often, not because the work wasn't urgent, not because there were 80,000 people at his doorstep, right? Not because that he didn't want to do it. Rest is an act of trust. Now, this kind of goes back to the delegation thing we were talking about earlier. Trust those you've delegated to. If you've delegated properly, again, reference my podcast episodes on delegation. If you've delegated properly, trust the people you've delegated to. Like let go. Think about, why is it that I can't let go of this? Trust that they'll handle things to your expectations as long as you've communicated and they've understood properly. Trust that when you get back, it won't be a colossal mess. Like, how many of you have gone on vacation and you get back and your desk is like, you've got so many emails, hundreds of emails that you have to surf through and all of that. And you're thinking, why did I even go? Like, I don't even know if it was worth it because I am so stressed out right now. Yeah. Like, I don't think I'm the only one in the world that has done that. So that's where we need to really think about rest, and trust and delegation comes into this whole equation. But what Robert Franck, I like to call him Robert, even though I don't know him, but he uses Winston Churchill as an example. So this was amazing to me. And again, so you're going to learn something. I think you don't know this, but you might know this, but you're going to learn something as well about Winston Churchill. So I didn't know that he was a writer. Like that was his main job, was being a writer. So Franck, our author, he went to Chartwell, which was the estate that Winston Churchill lived in outside of London. So he went for a tour, and the one observation that he made right away was that everything was made of bricks. Imagine this. Okay, so it's green London, right outside of London. And you've got this big house estate. Now, I've never been there, so I'm totally making this up. I don't know what it looks like, but everything is made of brick. So I'm imagining the drive, that's going to the estate. Like there is brick fencing and the gates are brick. The garage is brick. The house is all bricks. Everything is bricks. And so what Franck learned was that Churchill, as a writer, for his job, he had to he made a goal of his own to write 2,000 words a day. Okay, that was his work. So every day he wrote 2,000 words a day. When he was finished with his 2,000 words, he laid bricks. He laid 200 bricks in the afternoon, and that was his rest. So think about that. 2,000 words a day is his work because that's what he got paid to do. And then after that, he laid bricks. He was a bricklayer. Didn't know that either. He was a mason. And so he laid bricks, and that was his rest. So what do you do? And this is where we're going to spend a lot of our time that we have left. What do you do that takes you away from work so much so that you don't think about work? Right? For example, you guys are going to find this super odd, but I love to shampoo carpets. I do. It takes me away from work. I like the physicalness of the shampooer and watching it make the lines in the carpet. I like taking the tank into the kitchen sink and emptying out all that dirty water. Like when I see that, I'm like, oh, such satisfaction until I realize, oh, wait a minute, we've been living in this dirt. So that's not so cool. But I love to shampoo carpets. I love to bake. I love to cook. I love to fold towels. Like these, I didn't even really realize that would be considered rest until I read this book. So what is it that you love to do that takes you away from work, so that you don't think about it? It could be, I love watching the Bears beat the Packers at football, right? That's rest. It's rest to me. It may not be rest to others. But sometimes going for walks, like when we define rest, we're thinking we go to the or which are fine and which are great. But if they don't do it for you, like if being out in nature doesn't quiet your mind, so that you're focusing on other things, like I think there's a purpose for going for a walk. Like when I go for a walk, it's really to clear my head, but it's also to start to brainstorm and to be thinking about things if I'm trying to solve a problem. It's not necessarily rest for me. Okay. So, and that's just me. So I want you to be thinking about, what does that look like for you? What does rest look like for you in this definition? And we're going to go into it further in a moment. What Franck is suggesting, and I don't know if I'm 100% with him on this. So I would love to hear your feedback. But basically there are 3 buckets. There's a work bucket, there's a rest bucket, and then there's an idle bucket. And the idea is that you take 100% of your time and you're splitting it between work and rest. You don't want anything in the idle bucket. And we'll talk about that here in a second. I want to define what these buckets are. Okay. So work bucket. Work is what you do to get paid, or what is your primary responsibility? So, for example, if you are a stay-at-home parent and you don't get paid for that, but that's your primary responsibility, that's your work. Okay. So, under this definition, it's what gets paid or what is your primary responsibility. Okay. For me, it's executive coaching. It's I'm doing disc facilitation workshops. I am coaching through the Esther Project, things like that. It's leadership development, everything along that line. But I also want to be careful to explain that it's not just the act of coaching. It also is preparing for the coaching sessions, right? It's preparing for this show. It's volunteer work. And so I'm a Rotarian. And so I consider my volunteer work with Rotary as work because I'm in Rotary for 2 reasons. One, I believe in the cause and I wanna do good and I wanna give back to my communities. So that is the rest part of the equation. But the work part is I'm also part of Rotary to leverage those connections to grow my business. So that's associated with work. Make sense? Okay. So that's the work bucket. So think about everything that you're doing that goes into that work bucket. Now, the rest bucket is kind of the opposite. So, what do you do that you don't get paid for and it takes your mind off of work? So, as I was thinking about this when I was reading this book, I would say, like I said, I love shampooing carpets, things like that. But more, you don't shampoo your carpets every week. So for me, it's lunch with friends. So I go to lunch with my best friend most Tuesdays. I love that. Going to lunch with my mom on Fridays. I love that. Dancing with my grandson to the Wiggles or to Mickey Mouse's hot dog dance, sightseeing, traveling, those things take me away and so that my brain can recover so that I can quiet those voices. Um, Watching my favorite Netflix show is probably not rest unless it's maybe on a weekend. So whatever you've got in your rest, I would love to know. So if you want to write it in the chat, great. What do you do that takes your mind completely off of work? I'm just very interested to know what that looks like. So please put something in the chat there. And then our last bucket is the idle bucket. That's like that bucket where these are activities that you're doing because you're procrastinating. These are activities that avoid work. So, me sitting drinking tea alone in the coffee shop, was that idle time? Oh, great. Thanks, Anna. Yeah, putting time on my agenda for myself. That's wonderful. Working out. Excellent. I really wish that was my rest time, but nope. I love it. I mean, I don't do it, but I need to. But sitting in that coffee shop, right, was that procrastination? No, that was rest for me today. Now, sitting at lunchtime, this is what I do from time to time, full transparency, sitting watching Emily in Paris, which is one of my favorite shows on Netflix, episode after episode, that would be considered idle time because I will do that and then, like, I really don't wanna I'm just not feeling it going back to work, like, it doesn't energize me, where when I go to lunch with Trisha on Tuesdays, that energizes me, it gives me back my mojo, if you will, to come back and work and do what my purpose in life is that Jesus told me I needed to do, right? So that's important. So what Franck says, and I'm just going to quote here, he says, always strive to be filling the work bucket and the rest bucket with Christ-centered activities. Okay, so what's a Christ-centered activity? Does that mean that we're always supposed to be reading the Bible and everything we're doing is Christ-centered because, you know, we're studying it's got Jesus in it? No. Mm-mm. Whatever your purpose is, whatever you're doing today, whether that is working at CVS or you're a machinist or you're a doctor, whatever it is that your role is, and that is your purpose, and those are the people that you serve, those are Christ-centered activities. Now, But you also then, when you're resting, you need to do something then that is also helping you, because we need to be sure that we are healthy and we are able to continue our work. So the one thing that Franck talks about in here, he does a really good job at calculating um, at at showing us how productivity decreases even though you're working more hours. Now, most of us already know that, like we've either experienced it or you've seen the studies or somebody has told you that at a leadership conference or something. We all pretty much know that, where if I'm going to work a solid 8 hours and I don't take lunch and I don't take breaks, that hour 5 through 8 is probably going to be less productive. Like you're going to be sitting in your chair or standing at the machine, but maybe your piece rate is going to decline because you're just tired and you're not into it. So if you take your breaks and take a lunch and rest doing activities, not idle activities, refresh you, then hours 5 through 8 are going to be so much more productive. And he does a fantastic job at laying out that argument. So I was thinking about that, and that question on Christ-centered activities, and I thought, so what about Bible study? Is that work or is that rest? Is that work or is that rest? Well, for me, if I'm getting ready for this show, it's work. But if I'm studying the Bible to learn more and it really refreshes me and I'm maybe with a life group or something like that, that's probably rest. I just found it interesting that Christ-centered activities, at least I did think, oh, Bible based and things like that. And that's not necessarily what it is. So, okay. So as we're going to wrap here in a second, but based on Franck's definitions of work, rest, and idle, I want you to be thinking about this. Again, put it in the chat, or you can just write it down or whatever. But when you think about the past few weeks, which bucket has gotten the most of you? Would that be a work bucket? Would that be a rest bucket? Would that be an idle bucket? So when you think about the past few weeks, which bucket has gotten the most of you? Work, rest, or idle? Yeah. For me, I don't know the answer to that. So I'll tell you how I'm going to figure it out in a second. Which bucket do you default to when you're overwhelmed? Do you like dig into your work? Do you do some numbing idle time? Maybe you're scrolling, maybe you're watching your Netflix show or whatever. So are you digging into more work? Are you digging into idle time, or are you digging into intentional rest? And that's kind of that question is, okay, we default to idle. Yeah. And some of us do, right? Because you just need to, if I'm overwhelmed, depending on what I'm overwhelmed about, I may do the exact same thing. Like if I've got too much rotor, too much work, too much stress, too much family, too much whatever. Yeah. I might just be like, okay, I just need to sit here and watch my shows, that type of thing. Yeah, exactly. Um, oh yeah, good. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I default to idle because I confuse rest as doing nothing and not refreshing myself. Yeah, and so that's the premise of what Robert Franck is saying here. And so what I'm going to do, and so I'm going to this is out there in the public. So I track all of my time on an app called Toggle. So Toggl. And so after I finished this book, like early January, I tagged my activities as rest and work. Today, I'm going to start. I purposely didn't tag anybody idle. Like I didn't do that because I didn't really want to know how much time in idle time. But starting today, I'm absolutely going to do. So it'll be rest, work, and idle. And then in 3 weeks, 4 weeks time, I'm going to run a report that says, okay, What's the percentage of time that I'm resting? What's the percentage of time that I'm working? What's the percentage of time that I'm doing idle activities? And how should I adjust them? So Franck, he even goes into what the ratio should be between work and rest. And that depends on you. Like he couldn't give me, okay, Melissa, it needs to be 60% work and 40% rest. That depends on you. It depends on how you're energized. But just to be self-aware and to know, I think that is um, his absolute message out of this book. If you're interested in it at all, buy the book. So it's called Buy a Cabin, Robert L. Franck, and it looks like that. I don't, I'm not an affiliate or anything like that, but I just really appreciated Nick and Caitlin. It was a very thoughtful gift, and as you can tell, I'm totally into it. Okay, so here's your homework. So first, I want you to identify what rest looks like to you. So if you have even if you have an idea, like right now, put it in the chat. If you have an idea right now where you like to rest, like what activities those are, and it can be laying on the beach. Like it doesn't have to be laying bricks. If rest is you going, in your hot tub or whatever for 30 minutes or however long you're supposed to be in a hot tub or in the sauna, that's okay if that's what is doing it for you. And if you are a bricklayer and that's what's doing it for you, then that's okay too. That's the whole idea, is let's figure out and find out what that looks like for us, and then lean into that, right? So just kind of bringing it back, Jesus didn't rest because he couldn't handle the work, obviously. He didn't rest because the work wasn't important. He modeled this for us, right? It's work, rest. Pray is throughout it all. Work and rest, work and rest, work and rest, and rinse and repeat. And it doesn't mean that we're working from 9 to 5 and we're resting from 5 to 9 or whenever your bedtime is, right? There's rest within the work day. That's why we have a lunchtime, plus we're hungry. But work, rest, rinse, and this is preventative, right? It's to prevent burnout. And this is very important. And this was modeled, right? This is Jesus saying, this is how leadership is sustained. This is how you avoid losing yourself in the mission. And this goes for those folks who are in the faith-based industry as well, right? You always think, well, I'm a missionary or I'm a church pastor or whatever that is, whatever you're doing for your job, then I can't be selfish. Yes, you can, because you're going to be so much more impactful, and you're going to be able to do God's purpose and his mission work so much better if you rest, right? If you buy that cabin. This is how you stay grounded in truly what matters. So, okay, we're wrapping up here. I've just got actually 3 things that I want you to do, and that is, if this resonated with you at all, I'd love for you to subscribe so that you don't miss future conversations about Take Jesus to Work Day, but also the podcast Top Floor Please. We do Take Jesus to Work Day once a month. Topics change, right? I live life looking for leadership lessons. And now I'm bringing the biblical piece into it, because then my world are aligned. And I know that's what I'm supposed to do. If you know of somebody who needs permission to slow down, please share this episode with them. Those are the 2 things. Subscribe and share this episode if you know of somebody, maybe yourself. So replay this. This is going to be on my YouTube channel. And if you want practical leadership lesson conversations, how to get things done with day to day, all of those things, then please check out my podcast, Top Floor Please. We have our each episode drops every Monday. So that's a weekly deal that we do. So as you head back into the rest of your day, I want you to remember, you do not have to separate your faith from your leadership. In fact, you shouldn't. You have an obligation not to, because we lead when we are whole, and when we bring our entire body to work, we lead so much better. So take Jesus with you. Take Jesus with you into your meetings, into your conversations, into your decisions, because that's what Take Jesus to Work Day is all about. All right, everyone. I want to thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next time.